votes are finally in, and it's about time that we all found out who won this thing. You voted all throughout the month of April for your favourite Mario game, and having received 524 votes for 32 different games, I've got plenty of material to work with. Thank you so much. Please bear in mind that I had absolutely no input on the placements in this list, and therefore if you don't agree with the list, well, tough, basically. It's also worth saying that this list got stupidly close in the latter stages, with the top two only being separated by just 2 votes in the end. But once again, thank you to all of you who voted. I'm very happy with the response I got, even if 1 or 2 of you voted for Mario is Missing, and another one voted for Mario's early years. You know who you are. Anyway, I'm wasting time. Let's get ready to rumble! Oh yeah. Gate crashing its way into the top 10, we have the wonderfully unique Luigi's Mansion. Starring in his own game for the first time since Mario is Missing, the cowardly Luigi is given the task of saving his more famous brother from a haunted mansion that Luigi won in a contest that he didn't enter. You could almost describe it as Fatal Frame for kids who don't constantly want to have to change their underwear. With the lack of Mario, Luigi's Mansion plays absolutely nothing like a conventional Mario platformer. Instead, it's all about Luigi and his Poltergust 3000, a Ghostbusters-style vacuum cleaner that sucks up ghosts. You wander around the mansion looking for clues to Mario's whereabouts, while returning all the ghosts back to their picture frames. And even if you aren't a fan of this game, you have to say that is kind of a creative concept. There's an awful lot I like about this game. From the interesting boss fights to the surprisingly creepy atmosphere. It really is a game that you should play if you haven't already. The only problem that many people find with it is that it's too short, the game only ever taking about a day to complete. That and the fact that, some people aren't open to new ideas within a series. And while I'm here, I guess I should talk about the Blackout City. Following a lightning strike after the Boolossus fight, all the lights in the mansion go out, meaning that loads of ghosts start to come after you. Not only is the atmosphere ramped up to crazy levels, but it's also home to one of the weirdest and creepiest urban legends in video games. In one room, there are 3 telephones. Pick up the one in the middle and wait for the lightning strike to cause the lighting to flash, and you should see a very unusual shadow. A shadow that many people have often said is depicting Luigi's suicide. Now usually I'd write it off as bullshit and call it a day, but I've got to say, if Luigi is holding a telephone, why are his arms down by his side in the shadow? Oh, Nintendo, why would you even? While the normal Mario platformers are great games, it's often said that they lack any sort of humour. Yes, they're technically fantastic, but they lack a personality. So, and here's the question. How do you get humour into a Mario game?
Nintendo!
Sweet candy-coated chicken boy, this is a funny game, and by far the funniest Mario game. This is the game that defined this sort of crazy humour that was forever associated with the RPG Mario games. And even though Paper Mario just a few years earlier was one of the first Mario games to use this humour, Superstar Saga helped to perfect it, and the end result is staggering really. In keeping with the fact that it's an RPG as well as a Mario game, it combines a giant RPG style story and turn-based battles with more traditional Mario platforming and the characters we all know and love. It's a great combination of styles and it creates a very unique gaming experience, especially as something as relatively formulaic as Mario. By far one of the greatest aspects of this game is the characters. Yes, you have Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, the regulars, but there's also the devious cat Kletta and the infamously incredible Forful. Forful in particular is one of the game's greatest highlights. I mean, my god, this guy is so quotable that you could probably set up an entire internet thing from it. Have you readiness for this? At last, my entrance with drama. I have fury. Snack on my wrath, think rats. The mustard of your doom. The mustard of your doom. Are you serious? Mustard of your doom. Admittedly, there are parts of the game that are rather mediocre, like the surprisingly repetitive storyline, but I honestly don't think that's why this game is so popular. It's got a brilliant charm to it, mostly as a result of the already mentioned humour, but the engaging gameplay and especially appealing combat system that always seems to involve the player in one way or another. It's a perfectly accessible game, regardless of your gaming preferences. Frankly, it'll welcome you with open arms. Out of all the games on this list, Super Paper Mario is the only that, to date, I am yet to play. But don't worry about this segment just being made of my vague impressions of this game. I've been watching Chugga Conroy's Let's Play! First and foremost, despite being a part of the Paper Mario series, there's a lot in this game that goes against the traditional Paper Mario formula. Rather than a full-on RPG, it manages to mix in platforming elements with a sensational RPG-style story. The turn-based combat system from previous titles is abandoned in favour of the more simplistic fighting style of Mario games of old. Admittedly, it does throw a few power-ups into the mix to make it just that bit more interesting, but it's still very basic. Which, when used in a game as long as this, it does get a tiny bit mundane after a while. However, something that gets far from tedious is the ability to switch between dimensions. By pressing the A button, you can switch between the simple 2D side-scrolling action and the much more expansive 3D gameplay. This is used extensively throughout the game and is often used to quite literally get a different perspective on your surroundings, usually showing a way around an obstacle or hidden content. Kinda reminds me of the phrase, things are not what they seem from the outset. As with the rest of the Mario RPGs, the story is excellent, but I honestly think that this has one of the greatest storylines in any Mario game. It starts off, once again, with Princess Peach being kidnapped, but by the devious Count Bleck rather than Bowser. Bleck then sucks Bowser, Peach and Luigi into an interdimensional wedding, forces Bowser and Peach to marry, and creates the Chaos Heart, which he then uses to open up the Void, which will swallow the universe. Mario must find the pieces of the Pure Heart in order to counteract the Chaos Heart and stop the destruction of all universes. It's safe to say that this is a far cry from the generic storylines of other Mario games. But that's not all. Super Paper Mario piles on the emotion in ways that are very rarely seen in a Mario game, in something not too dissimilar to Majora's Mask. It's a dark game at times, and there are numerous character deaths throughout, and some incredibly emotional scenes towards the end of the game. This is also reflected in the music that seems to always sum up the situation very well, whether it's the inevitable end of the world or a moving character revelation. I can't really say much more about Super Paper Mario because, like I said, I am yet to play it, but if there's one game that I really am looking forward to playing, it's this game. There's so much I've been told about this game, so much I've seen, my expectations are through the roof. I could talk for quite a while about Super Mario World. It is, after all, one of my favourite games of all time and probably my favourite Mario game. Hell, I even started an LP of it. But for the sake of being interesting and not boring you to death with my fanboyism, I'll try and keep it to a minimum. Let's start with the very basics, something that Super Mario World is very good at. There are a lot of games out there that try to overcomplicate things with elaborate and sometimes confusing level designs or one-time use power-ups that monopolise entire levels. Super Mario World keeps it so fantastically simple that it focuses on just the sheer joy of tight controls and wonderful gameplay. It all comes down to the simplest pleasures in gaming. The game is set on Dinosaur Land rather than the typical Mushroom Kingdom, and in a similar premise to Super Mario Sunshine, Mario decides to take a break from kicking Bowser's ass and goes on holiday. And in an outcome that quite literally anyone could have predicted, Peach gets kidnapped by Bowser. Well, whatever, stories haven't exactly been the strong point in Mario platformers. As a pure gaming experience, there's absolutely buckets to do. There are 8 different worlds with a grand total of 96 different exits in the game. Even after you've completed the regulation game, there's still the notorious Star World to complete and all the privileges that come with it. Overall, this game stands up as one of my favourites because of its pure simplicity. One of the first things I look for in a game is for it to put a smile on my face, for it to make me deliriously happy. At the end of the day, gameplay is the single most important thing in a game for me, and it's safe to say that Super Mario World delivers this in spades. This game, I love this game. Oh, I love this game. This game. Oh, I love this game. Oh, I love this game. I really love this game. Whatever your gaming preferences, wherever your allegiances lie, you cannot deny that Super Mario 64 was a gigantic gaming milestone, especially within the Mario series. Because think about it, Super Mario 64 is to the Mario series that Ocarina of Time is to the Zelda series. While you can argue that it isn't as good as some of the other games, this game helped to establish a formula that will be used for many games to come. Way back in 1994, Shigeru Miyamoto wanted more out of Mario and wanted to create something new within the series. Originally there were plans for an isometric camera, like in Super Mario RPG, but by switching to a free-roaming 3D camera, it allowed for a lot more freedom, both in terms of control and in terms of exploration. That's because the levels that make up the majority of Mario 64 are open world, with a few notable exceptions like the Super Slide and the Bowser levels. The gameplay and innovation is the pinnacle of what Mario offers to the video game world, especially when you consider how relatively little games like, Super Mario Bros. Had to offer. It's quite incredible just how far Nintendo went with this game. I could go on forever about all the crazy stuff in the game, but I'll just talk about Tiny Huge Island. Rather than the single portrait used for all the other levels in the game, Tiny Huge Island has 3 paintings, one of which is just a painting. The other 2 provide a different way of looking at the level, with the left painting causing the island to become smaller and the right painting making the level larger. Once again, the music cannot be ignored. Koji Kondo was in his element here, using themes from previous games and original content to create some fantastic music. Some say that listening to Bomb Battlefield can cure deadly diseases. Really, Super Mario 64 is a huge game, a mammoth leap forward for 3D video games. Never mind that it introduced tons of stuff to the Mario world, but it's the larger picture that just shows how groundbreaking it was. I mean seriously, where would the world be without Mario's breakdance kick? Now, while I don't think it's the greatest game ever made, I do have a great deal of respect for it. It was one of the first games I ever played and got me truly interested in video games. One of the all-time greats right here. Another RPG? Guys, come on! This is Mario we're talking about, the definition of platforming perfection. There's no way that this can be transferred to something like an RPG. Well, shit. That shut me up. My word is this game good. In fact, it's been called
the perfect RPG.
When I saw that this game was so popular amongst few people, I personally went out and bought a copy of this game, just so I could give a proper opinion on this game. And I gotta tell you, this is something truly special. Gameplay wise, the game took what worked from the previous 2 Mario and Luigi games and added so much innovation that this game really stands out within the trilogy. It's not exactly the first Mario RPG on the DS, that'll be Partners in Time, but it uses the DS's capabilities so much better and it actually feels like a full-on DS game rather than a modified GBA game. In keeping with the title, Mario and Luigi are found inside Bowser's body for the majority of the game, while Bowser explores the Mushroom Kingdom overworld. This actually means that Bowser is a playable character and a hard-hitting one too. He's kitted out with his minions as well as a punch and a fire breath attack. I don't know if it's just me, but it does feel pretty good to finally have Bowser as a playable character in one of these games. Now I could go into a great deal about the game's story, but all you need to know is that Forful returns in this game and he's funnier than ever. A winner is you. Beef? I am lacking in beef. Forful is beefless. All who resist will be beat like naughty little eggs. You inhaled like a hungry syrup pig at the free pancake buffet. I have chortles. At the end of the day, I enjoyed every minute of playing this game. The gameplay is addictive, the story and the characters are incredible, and the music, oh my days, the music. Honestly, if you haven't played this game yet, just do it now. Just stop the video, buy it. Right, what's next? Oh god, why this game?
I knew it, I'm surrounded by assholes.
Now I just want to set my stall out early. I don't hate this game, far from it. I think it's actually a really great game and adds plenty of new ideas to the original game. However, it does feel like Nintendo were just trying to cash in on the success of the first game, and as a result, it feels like it lacks a bit of passion. There are a few games out there that are technically brilliant, like Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and the Metroid Prime series, although to a lesser extent, that I just don't feel a part of. It feels like I'm simply playing the game rather than the game fully engaging me in the way that some of my favourites do. It's a hard one to explain really, and I understand if you have absolutely no idea what I'm on about, well that's my reason. And while I'm here, I want to defend Josh Scorcher and what he said about the game. He described it as having no soul, and personally, that's a very good way of describing it, if a bit blunt. It's not a bad game per se, but it just doesn't feel like the developers put the love and care into it as they would have done with other games. Maybe it's a similarity to the first game, but it just doesn't feel like anything truly special. That's not saying it isn't good, it's just saying that it lacks passion. Anyway, rant over. This game, like the first, is packed to the brim with the most genius gameplay elements that those crazy people in Japan have to offer. For the most part, it's a lot like Super Mario Galaxy, except for one major thing: Yoshi. Holy hell, it's nice to see the guy back, returning to the 3D stage for the first time since Super Mario Sunshine. And honestly, Yoshi has never been used in a better way, with power-ups and free reign on where to aim your devilish tongue. Of course, in order to get away with making a second Super Mario Galaxy game, there's a lot of new power-ups in addition to just Yoshi, my favourite probably being Rock Mario. There's whole levels based around these specific power-ups, and as a result they are used to their fullest potential, unlike Boo Mario from the original. I especially love the Bowser's Galaxy Generator level, where numerous power-ups are used in just one level, even both of Yoshi's. There's plenty of great level design in there, including the revival of Tiny Huge Island, and the nostalgia-filled Throwback Galaxy with a twist boss fight at the end. As far as music goes, it's on a par with the ridiculously good score from Super Mario Galaxy. I mean, holy cow, this is some of the greatest music I've ever heard in a video game, and it's capable of portraying so many different emotions. It's honestly one of the game's strongest points. So overall, while I don't think that Super Mario Galaxy 2 is one of the greatest games ever made, let alone the best Mario game, I do respect what Nintendo did in terms of a technical achievement. The level design is breathtaking at times, and there's plenty of references to previous Mario games, as well as the revival of Yoshi. It does feel a little cold in my eyes, and seems a lot like what would have been DLC for the highly successful original, but it's still a stellar game. So don't even try and complain, guys, I like this game. Here's my question to you. What would you get if you combined Superstar Saga's humour with Super Paper Mario's story and Bowser's Inside Story's gameplay? Well, you'd get a pretty damn good game. The closest you can get to this game? Super Mario The 1000-Year Door. I'll admit it, when I saw this game was so popular with you guys, I got a bit sceptical. Again, it's one of those games that I hadn't played prior to the list, but now I have played it, and I get it. My word, I get it. This game is just amazing. Following on from the rampant success of the original Paper Mario, Nintendo went all out with the sequel. There are a few flaws with this game really, and I'm personally surprised that this game isn't talked about more often. Gameplay is kinda like the first game, but better. It's the classic walkabout RPG with Mario and half a dozen partners to choose from that aid him in battle. There are a few new abilities like the paper plane and boats that allow you to reach other areas as you unlock them. In battle, Mario's partners are actually given health meters, so you can use items on them and such, and with the addition of a stage setting and an audience, the way that battles are played out changes as you progress through the game. Something that immediately hit me with 1000-Year Door was the story. It's not as dark as Super Paper Mario or even as complex, but it feels fantastically deep. Each of the game's 8 chapters introduces a different setting with different characters, almost all of which are brilliantly implemented and developed over time. Factor in the typical and almost expected Mario RPG humour, and you have one hell of a great story. So you people have chosen your favourite Mario RPG, Paper Mario The 1000-Year Door, and what a game it is. But, what's left? For a long time, Super Mario Sunshine could have been considered to be one of the more underrated titles in the Mario series, but in recent years it's on the rise and has actually acquired quite a following. It's one of the more unique entries into the franchise, with the whole new gameplay element of Flood being introduced, as well as characters like Bowser Jr., Toadsworth and P.T. Piranha making their debuts. For me, parallels can kinda be drawn with Majora's Mask from the Zelda series. Both games were follow-ons from two of the greatest games of all time, and therefore, in order to match or even beat them, the developers had to do something very different. And while Super Mario Sunshine is nowhere near as dark as Majora's Mask, the decision to include Flood and voice acting was something that split fans. The addition of Flood adds layers upon layers to how Sunshine plays. Combined with Mario's classic platform abilities, and the fact that Flood can have different nozzles so that it can be used as a jetpack and as an outboard motor, Super Mario Sunshine has some stupidly diverse and flexible gameplay elements. And hey, even if you didn't like using FLUDD, Nintendo were even kind enough to include secret levels that were all about pure Mario platforming. Yes, they were as hard as balls, but they acted as a challenge for the classic Mario fan. Another thing that I adore in Super Mario Sunshine is the physics engine. Mario zips around like a flea in this game, and it's so much fun just chucking him around. The physics feel very tight and very manageable, or at least they would be if they didn't glitch out spectacularly from time to time. Moving swiftly on, we reach one of my favourite parts, the story. If you look at most Mario platformers, they have little to no story whatsoever. What story they do have is literally, oh no! Princess Peach has been kidnapped. Mario will have to beat some bad guys and eventually Bowser in order to save her. Super Mario Sunshine goes for something a little bit different, with Mario and Pals taking a holiday, and Mario getting framed for polluting Isle Delfino, while the real culprit, Shadow Mario, who is later revealed to be Bowser Jr., kidnaps Peach and takes her to Corona Mountain, and to Bowser, in his bathtub. While it is, at its core, exactly the same as previous games, it has a much more interesting premise that I have to give Nintendo credit for. Unusually, the music isn't one of the game's strong points, and it's one of the more less memorable soundtracks in the series. Mind you though, songs like Underwater Exploration make it all worthwhile. I could honestly listen to this all day. So really, Super Mario Sunshine is one of those games that was an underrated game, but due to better coverage and better appreciation for what it is, it's now a fully fledged member of the Mario family. I have an awful lot of fun playing this game, and the open world levels are fantastic to play through. It may not be the cult classic that it once was, but it's now a true series highlight. What can be said about Super Mario Galaxy? It's a game that was universally praised upon release, described by many to be one of the greatest games of all time. And you know what? I actually kind of agree with them there. Set in space, Mario once again chases after Bowser, after he's captured Princess Peach in a stupidly epic display. He meets up with the mysterious Rosalina on the Comet Observatory, and has to gather the grand stars which Bowser stole in order to power the ship and reach Bowser at the centre of the universe. A simple concept, but given a new lick of paint. Kinda like Super Mario Sunshine. Gameplay is actually quite a mixed bag. The controls work well, and it thankfully doesn't focus too much on motion control. I don't know, Mario motion control just doesn't seem the way forward. Maybe I'm a traditionalist or something, but I don't know. I love the variable physics within the game, as well as the cracking array of power-ups. However, I'm not too big a fan of just how linear some of the games were, and although this is more prominent in the sequel, there are still levels that feel like they're on a fixed track. One of the greatest parts of the game, however, is the music. Music's never exactly been something that Mario has struggled with in the past, but my god, and seriously, holy shit. Super Mario Galaxy has some of my favourite ever pieces of music in it. The transition to orchestral music really tells with some of Nintendo's closest franchises like Super Mario Galaxy and Skyward Sword. It's up there, people, one of the best soundtracks in any video game, ever. Really, Super Mario Galaxy is one of those games, the hugely important, series-defining titles that stand the test of time. It's the quintessential platformer, and puts such a giant smile on your face that it has the ability to replenish any passion that's been lost for video games. This has been rabbidluigi, and according to you guys at least, Super Mario Galaxy is the greatest Mario game of all time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Brooklyn Rage!